When I was 17 years old, I was dating a guy who I'd been with for a couple years, and we were very, very close. I lived at his house. I lived with his family. We spent every day together. And one day we were visiting my mom's house, and my parents were in the middle of a divorce, and so we were having an awkward family reunion dinner. It was absolutely terrifying, and I wanted a partner along with me. And so I brought my boyfriend, and as we're at the dinner, his phone was ringing consistently, and him trying to be so polite, he would ignore it, but the phone calls kept coming in, and finally he picked up, and the voice on the other line said, Wade is missing. And Wade was, in essence, Ian, my boyfriend's brother. He was a brother to a lot of young men in the community, but more so I would argue to Ian. They had a family joke together, that they were brothers since they both had an absent parent, and it fit. They looked so similar. They lived together at a time and played rugby together, and Wade really crafted Ian as a young man. With his father figure missing, it was Wade that really took on that role, even only being a few years his senior. So to hear that he was missing was absolutely disturbing. And the dinner continued, and phone calls, and missing persons, and it had turned out that Wade had allowed his darkness and his wretchedness to overcome him, and depression had won, and he committed suicide in January of 2012, alone along a riverbank. And it was premeditated. Standoff Grove, the founder of transpersonal psychology, says that the motif of death can play an important role in the human psyche. And to go back to that narrative therapy, it's a practice that Wade actually did for us in a very intimate way. It was approximately a year after Wade had passed away, and there was a giant lightning storm. The biggest lightning storm and the most frequent lightning storm that I had ever seen happen. And so a big group of us, five strong, all got into the back of a car and just started taking off up this huge May Valley hill. And we got to the highest peak that we could and parked the car, and we would just look out in pure wonderment at this continuous stream of huge lightning bolts scattering across the sky. And it was glorious. And the whole time we're taking video recordings, and we have just this youthful, sober ecstasy running over us. Every time something big goes off, oh my gosh, did you see that one? And holy shit, that one reached over there. And laughing and joking and pointing and prodding at each other. No, look this way. And this continued on for 20 minutes until the lightning started to subside. And we're sitting in the car, and we're 17, so we're all so impatient. It's been 30 seconds, and we're tapping our legs already. And after a few minutes, we decided it was over, and we start, murmurs start coming out, hey, maybe we should go, or, I have this to do tomorrow, so we all start to kind of prepare to drive off. And I look over to my right, and Ian's sitting to my side. And he's shaking his head, he's nodding his head like in approval, but his eyes are closed, and his mouth is murmuring some sort of indistinguishable wording. I looked at him, and it felt weird. And as I look forward, the biggest bolt of the entire night pierced through the sky, hung wide, stayed still, and then retracted into itself. Across the whole sky, the inside of the car lit up so all of our faces, all of the finest details could be seen. And as we all go to scream in excitement, oh my gosh, did you see that? Ian from the side of me goes, oh my God, that was so weird. And I turn to him, and he's just white, and his lips are blue, and I look at him, and he goes on to tell us that he had been talking to Wade. And he had asked Wade that just one time would he answer the call. So we counted down from 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. and he said he got to 0. And right then was the biggest bolt of the night. Now, a lot of skeptics will call coincidence, and believe me too, I did as well. He tells us this story, and a good friend to my left begins to cry, and the driver begins to cry, and all of us feel this energy within the car. And of course, a topic so taboo as suicide and death and get brought up, and we're all still in a mourning phase, and of course there would be that energy, but there was something different. And of course, we were recording the lightning bolts all night, so as we go back to the house and we're going through them, trying to relive the excitement that just was, the girl that was recording looks at the phone and says, "No way." You see, as S. Gold says, Mother Nature doesn't exist neither for nor because of us. So Mother Nature exists not for nor because of us. She surpasses our technologies. So all night, all of the lightning bolts showed up through all of these video recordings. You could see them, you could see the stripes, you could see where they went in which directions and where they broke apart. But this one video recording, the last video recording in the night, was the only one that didn't show up. Replaced was a high-pitched screech. Eee. A blue screen, and the video cutting right at the end of the bolt with Ian's voice, the loudest you could hear. Oh my God, that was so weird. The power of this story lies perfectly in the power of understanding narrative therapy. When we changed the narrative of Wade's death from a suicide, from losing his brother, from no longer knowing him, from no longer being around him, from losing somebody who really shaped and molded him, to the acknowledgement that he's still out there, that he's still around, that he can still hear us, that he is still oversight us, not only changed for Ian his perception and understanding of the life story of his brother dying, but also for me and for the others in the car, their narratives that they had been telling themselves for so long. As a young woman struggling with religion, I was able to turn my spiritual practice into something of understanding death as a transition rather than a cessation of life. And that is what you can do. If you want to change your story, you can. If you want to change the narrative of your life, you can, because it's your story to change.